Good morning, America. How are ya? Monday morning rail. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I'm at the world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. Today is Monday, and you know what we do on Monday? You guessed it, we do show and tell. Show and tell is going to start in just a moment, but show and tell is always brought to you by Jelsma Graphics, the people that make all the embroidered railroad clothing since 1985, almost 40 years. All your railroad embroidery clothing that you need, just go to jelsma.com. That's JELSMA.com and shop to your heart's content. With all that being said, show and tell is going to start real quick. Show and tell for this Monday, November the 11th, is starting right now, and we want to say thank you to all the veterans out there. Today is Veterans Day, November the 11th, and we just want to thank all the people that served and sacrificed for our freedom that we have. And we thank all the people that voted in this last election. And so we just thank once again for being in America. Now, Jelsma Graphics is going to be at Milwaukee Train Show the weekend before Thanksgiving. Not this weekend, but the next weekend. It will be in the main convention center in downtown Milwaukee. It'll be Train Fest. It's Saturday and Sunday. We have done Train Fest for years and years when I was out at the fairgrounds. It's the first year they're going to have it downtown. And we want you to come by and say hi to Greg and I. Greg Turn, our cameraman. You've seen Greg on a lot of the videos that we posted here, better known as number 2. He'll be here. He will also be available to sign his glossies, and he'll do that anytime during the show. Just ask him, and you can get a picture, and he'll sign a glossy for you. Now, for those that watched the What's Neat show with Ken Patterson, as you know, Jelsma Graphics sponsors that, and I'm on it, that show quite a bit. I'm a guest on there, and we have the What's Neat hat. They're absolutely free, and this is a real popular hat. We have a very limited amount. So when that show opens on Saturday, you better run to the Jelsma Graphics booth to get your free What's Neat hat. Now, today show and tell is I want to talk about pool power. And that's when two railroads would share their engines when they would cross the line. For an example, the Seaboard Railroad, when it went into Virginia, would run on the RF&P's rail. Well, many times they would have a freight coming through, and it would be destined for, let's say, somewhere in the Carolinas. Instead of taking the engines off, they would just keep them on, and they would keep records of how many miles, and then once a month or whatever the arrangement was, they would settle up, and hopefully they would equal out the mileage. The Seaboard engines would run on the RF&P, and the RF&P would run on the Seaboard, and they hopefully, and at the end they would pay one another a certain amount of mileage or whatever. But how all that pool power got started was actually the marketing department of the railroads decided to really go after some really heavy auto parts business and other type businesses that they would need to have parts shifted from one area to the other, and to save switching time at the different terminals, they would just run the engines through, and they had the agreement. It's something that the railroads really started heavy in the early 1960s. Probably 60, 61 is when they really started heavy. But now, for an example, the FEC when they ran their Henry M. Flagler for a short term, they would run it all the way from Miami, Jacksonville, all the way into Washington, D.C. with the Henry M. Flagler, that E3, and you would see that in D.C. After a while, they cut that back, and that was in the late 30s. So pool power has been around kind of for a long time. Now, pool power really got popular, and like I say, in the early 60s. Now, me growing up in the cornfields of Iowa, I saw a lot of pool power, and I brought just a concept here that the Burlington would run. And typically on the Burlington, they would have a GP20s, a GP30s. That was just typically the pool power. And on the Burlington, they would always, when it left Omaha to go to Chicago and across the river, they would, the Burlington always was in the lead because of the cab signals. When it got on the UP, then the UP would have that. And this was here, they would typically run freights on the Burlington that were UP engines, UP freights. Typically, they would have 2 Burlingtons, 2 UPs. Southern Pacific showed up all the time, and it was just really kind of neat to see all of these color schemes on the railroad. Then I would go out to North Platte, Nebraska, and North Platte, Nebraska is the mecca of railroad hub. It's one of the largest rail yards there is in the country, even to this day. But back in the 60s, the first time that I went to North Platte was, I think, 1961. And I saw all of these pool power units. The first time I saw a Southern Tuxedo unit. And where that came out of, it came out of Louisville. They had a train, and that the Southern brought it to St. Louis. And then the Mopac brought it all the way into North Platte. And so you saw Missouri Pacific, you saw Southern, you saw Katy. The first time I ever saw a Katy, and I saw both color schemes at North Platte back then. And then I saw Western Pacific, which Western Pacific, the far east you'd see a Western Pacific was North Platte. They wouldn't go east of North Platte. But all over the United States, the different railroads would get contracts for a really kind of like a unit train, and so they would have arrangements with the railroads to have pool power. And this right here, I grew up watching these trains right here. Now I kept the padding on it. It just went through a heavy snowstorm. So, and that was very typical to see in Iowa. The engines would be full of snow, especially coming from the west on the Burlington. But the Rock Island had pool power. The Chicago Northwestern was another trading party with Union Pacific. You got to remember, the Union Pacific, for years and years, it wasn't until later on, when all the big UP mergers, that it stopped at Omaha, Nebraska. And UP's biggest connection was in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and they had all their freights, and they had 100 and some freights a day, and they had a pool, and so who took those trains was the Burlington, the Rock Island, the Chicago Northwestern, the Illinois Central had a western leg, and all these different railroads had to bring all the UPs over. And so I always enjoyed the pool power. And a lot of people say, hey, they're going to go out to Nebraska now and watch trains. Well, I don't even have to leave Jacksonville, Florida, because I could go right down at the river where they on the FEC, and I could see Burlington, Northern Santa Fe, I could see UP, all kinds of Canadian power, so I don't even have to leave because of the pool power today. And so it's really interesting seeing all these engines, and that's the way it is. Jacksonville, Florida, on this Veterans Day, November the 11th, 2024.